Welcome to the Temple of Geeks Who Review, a Doctor Who inspired podcast for fans of the long-running British science fiction television series. I'm your host, Nate, or Doc in the Box.
And I'm your other host, Elizabeth, aka Lady of Time Cosplay.
We ourselves are massive Doctor Who fans, and we are here to talk about all things Doctor Who. Throughout our series, we will be discussing and have been discussing the latest episodes, the classic series, spin-offs, and everything in between.
We'll also be bringing you interviews with people who have worked in and around the series, behind-the-scenes information, and all sorts of other Doctor Who-related fun.
So whether you've been a longtime fan or you're just getting started, we hope you'll join us for the ride.
And today, we will be discussing the newest episode, 73 Yards.
Yes.
And as we always do, major spoiler warnings. This is a really weird and wild episode that you want to go into with as few spoilers as possible. So if you haven't watched it yet, go away, go watch it, and then come back and join us as we talk about this, because it is a very strange episode.
And one thing I can say, if you haven't seen the episode before you leave, it is not about football.
No, yeah.
Not about football.
Well, there's a little bit of football in it. Just
it's not. But it's not about football.
No, it's not.
There is a measure of distance, but not about football.
Yes.
Oh, man.
All right. So I guess like we always do, we'll start with our overall thoughts and how it compared to what you thought the episode was going to be.
I was confused on what it was going to be because it seemed very like it was going to be very creepy and spookier than some of the rest of the episodes we've gotten this season, especially now it's been on Disney Plus. However, the name 73 Yards was intriguing to the trailers we got about this woman stalking Ruby for the entirety of the episode. And I didn't know where that fit in exactly as far as like why it was so important. Yeah, it's a distance in measure that you can assume she's been away from, this woman is away from Ruby, but why is that significant? Why is it so significant? It's the title of the episode.
Yeah, for sure. When I read the synopsis for Boom, I thought Boom was going to be the Dr. Light episode, but like a lot of the promotional material that they put out, including the stills and the clip that they put out, even the trailer is only like got stuff from maybe the first 15 minutes of the episode, and that's it. Which I like it when they do that because you don't want to know too much, but I really don't know exactly what I expected. But I really loved how it went back into the fantasy and folklore vibes that we had in the first two episodes of this series, but with a much more serious and darker thing than Space Babies or The Devil's Cord had. They're kind of different episodes, but it reminded me a lot of Turn Left in Series 4, where, you know, something weird happens and the companion and the doctor are separated and there's this alternate timeline. But again, you know, with a much darker twist. Well, actually, both of the twists are very dark, but in their own way. You know?
Yeah, Turn Left is a really good one to compare it to. The other one I was thinking comparing it to, but it'd be an inverted one. So it's the companion to the doctor, because of the amount of suspense they put in this one, is Midnight.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially the scene in the pub, even that wound up being them just messing with her. Which
Yeah.
I loved. It's like, you know, and Millie in this episode, Millie Gibson, who plays Ruby Sunday, was just phenomenal in this episode. Like, especially the scene where Carla changes the locks, you know, and locks her out of their apartment. I was just like, oh, my heart.
That line, though, the freaking line when she's like, your mother didn't even want you, or whatever she said right there.
Yeah. I was like,
dang,
Carla, what? My only tiny little thing with this episode is where, and again, I don't want to see David Tennant again in this series until at least Judy Atwoo's second full series as the Doctor, but where was 14 in all of this? I mean, I know Unit ran away and Kate ran away. You can't just have a Doctor who's on Earth now.
Yeah, 14 has his own TARDIS because that was the spoils. That's what he got. Yes. That was his prize, baby.
Yes.
So he was in the past putting the Sixth Doctor on trial because 14 is the Valyard. I'm still convinced. Right. I'm still convinced. That's what he was doing. Screw this timeline. He wants the remainder of the regenerations back.
Okay. Yeah, that was my only thing where I was like, he's got the TARDIS, but his whole thing isn't, whatever. He might have also disappeared at the same time that 15 did. Who knows? Because who knows how linked
Their
those
souls are
two are, I
intertwined,
guess.
maybe, I guess.
Actually, I was going to say kind of how like 10 and 10 2 were connected, but I think most of that is fan fiction, so never mind fan theories. But, they might be connected in some way that hasn't been fully explored yet. And again, save that for at least series 2, Russell, but maybe there was something with that too.
Yeah, something about this episode felt like it was out of the standard timeline / universe. And even Kate
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that. It seems like everything went to like a halt or a pause around your events. Like everything
Yeah.
was focused around Ruby, and the doctor disappeared. And I don't know if you've ever seen, try to remember the name of the freaking movie. Oh, it was a Nicolas Cage movie with, I
Okay.
think, Nev Campbell, where he could see into the future, but it was only like it was limited. He could only see like 2 minutes at most into the future.
Okay.
Not Blink or Breach. I want to say it started with a B. Next. I was wrong. I
Next.
was completely wrong. So the movie doesn't start with a B. It starts with an N. It's called Next. So Nicolas Cage can see 2 minutes into the future. That's just an ability he has in this movie, in this world. Except for the one time when he's around her, which is Nev Campbell. He comes in contact with her, and all of a sudden he can see beyond that 2 minutes. And the entirety of the movie is him with her. They're going around. He's trying to get away from X people. I forget who. He's trying to save her. He's trying to save the world because the government finds out what he can do and like abducts him and says, you need to stop this bomb from blowing up New York City. And his focus unintentionally was focused on trying to save her and stop the bomb from going off. He overextended himself, couldn't save everything from happening, and New York exploded. Then the movie resets back to when he first meets Nev, and then they go their separate ways because he realized she's a distraction, and he knows what to do from that point forward, because from that point when he met her, he was able to see the future and the outcome of everything.
Gotcha.
And that's
Okay.
kind of how I felt like this show was, because it was really weird. It's like a pocket
Yeah.
universe. The doctor disappeared. Ruby was the woman herself.
Hmm.
And I don't know what kind of self hatred she has on herself to tell all these people things to make her look at her and just run away.
I know. Yeah.
How?
Like
But
that was one of the parts where I was like, I don't know what this is fully, but
yeah, there were a
Yeah.
lot of things I was confused about or not quite certain on. Like that one
Yeah.
being the main thing. Like why, if Ruby is that woman, what is she telling these people that terrifies them so much that they not only don't want to interact with her anymore, but hate her apparently so much?
Yeah. That was one of the things that I definitely wanted to talk about where like do you think that we're going to get more of an explanation for what happened or why that happened the way it did?
I kind of feel like this is gonna be a Sleep No More situation where we just
Okay.
got what we got, and we're not gonna have the greatest episode of Doctor Who of all time like I wanted. I stand on that. Sleep No More could have been good if they just wrote a part two with the first
He was
person
supposed to, I
storyline
think.
instead of the CCTV camera footage, because it was a found footage episode. Anyway, it's probably like the 15th time I brought this up on the podcast.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we might get more to this story later. I think mostly, because there's that line that Maestro has where they say, this creature is wrong, kind of thing. So I feel like there might be not a full explanation coming, but at least like hints as to why her timeline reacted the way it did, in
Yeah,
creating that kind of weird loop.
that I
It's
understand the
kind
breadcrumbs.
kind yeah, kind of like going back to what I was talking about with Turn Left, kind of how like Donna's importance to what ultimately happens at the end of that series led to led to like that little tiny decision creating an alternate universe rather than stuff just kind of going around
Yeah,
that one seemingly insignificant thing. Obviously there's something going on with Ruby. There's a lot of unexplored mysteries that we'll probably get answers to at the very least in an episode called The Legend of Ruby Sunday, which is part one of a two-part season finale. And again, like I've been saying, I do think that she is connected to the toy maker in some way, either being a child or grandchild of the toy maker. Maybe like how Maestro was music, maybe she's coincidence or something. I don't know, but I do think there will be at least, like I said, maybe not full explanation as to what was going on, but at least like a better like hints that we'll get as to why it all kind of did what it did, I guess.
Yeah, something I we didn't get an explanation about. It's something I was stuck on because when it ended, I was like, really? Like, as I like explanations, but this
Yes.
one left nothing. Like, why was that circle there? Who put the circle there? Why would those messages? Because one of them said, "I miss you," I think, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
Which I wonder if that's what made the doctor go away. I don't know. Like that was
I
the only
don't
thing that I
know.
could
We
think
have no explanation. We don't even know why Ruby ends up turning into the woman.
of.
Like, I get part of it, but I don't get it at the same time.
Yeah.
And like, what is if Ruby is this being that is telling people things that they run away? Then even what did she tell? What was his name? Mad Max or Prime Minister dude? Yeah, like
Yes. Mad
what's she
Jack.
telling? Yeah, Mad Jack. Like, what
Roger
is she
F.
telling
Dillon.
him?
Yeah.
Like, nothing was like, why is she so terrifying? If that is Ruby herself in her old age or as some entity, then what is so terrifying about her? That we have nothing. We have nothing.
Yeah, like I think there's some things in Doctor Who that can be left unexplained, like what the heck was under the blanket in Listen, or exactly what was outside the bus in Midnight. But hopefully, there's some more explanations coming. Because yeah, I'm if there aren't more explanations, I think I'd be okay with the episode. But I think if there are more explanations, it'll become an even better episode once we do know more. If that makes
I
sense.
yeah, my opinion, what I think separates like Midnight and Listen, and when you have entities that are unexplained and you don't know what they are, what makes those so good is that it leaves it up to your imagination. But here we
Mhm.
don't have that unexplained situation. We have the entity being the companion, but we don't have the explanation of what the actual connection is between the two in regards to how she got how why she is in that time loop. Yes, they went to a fairy circle, but what was the spell on the fairy circle? Who put the fairy circle there? Did Ruby put it there? There's no explanation on why these events took place. And when there's an unknown of the why, it's for me bothersome. But when it's an
Yeah.
unknown of an entity that leaves it up to the imagination, like, oh, what could it have been? That's a little more intriguing.
Yeah, that's
If
a
we
good
never
point though.
knew what the woman was, then that
Right.
would have been intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point about maybe Ruby, one of the splinters of Ruby somehow is responsible for that circle. I did try looking up because I thought, oh, surely because there's so many references to Wales and Welsh and the whole thing in the bar and everything. I thought like, oh, is this based on like a Welsh,
Folklore or
like some sort of
something.
Welsh superstition or folklore or something? I couldn't find anything. I mean, I didn't do like a super deep dive. I went on like Wikipedia and a few Welsh heritage sites. And just at a glance, I couldn't find anything that seemed to really be the inspiration or based around, for this episode. But potentially, maybe RTD will talk about that in a behind the scenes thing, and I'll be like, oh, I should have been able to find that one. I don't know. Because I feel like that would have maybe provided a bit of an explanation, but as far as I can tell, I can't find anything that it's like a direct reference to. But yes, I think we'll get more information. I hope we get more information because I think that'll make. I still really like the episode, but I agree there are some unanswered questions that we need some answers to, and we're halfway through the series.
Yeah, I
I'm
was
like,
indifferent on it. For another thing was I felt like, and I don't know if it was because it was the contrast of RTD versus Moffat, like those episodes back to back,
mhm,
because the buildup of Ruby being like strong and inquisitive and everything was a good buildup, and then when it got into Boom, she was like, to me, I was like, oh my god, Clara's back! Like, I like this character.
I
She's
get
like
it, yeah,
Clara. She's my Clara. She was like, this is what we're gonna do. I'm the boss. And in this episode, she didn't seem as not inquisitive, but with the woman standing there, she wasn't trying to figure out what she was saying. The woman was doing a repetitive motion. It wasn't like she didn't like try screaming at her. Yeah, she tried running to her, but I didn't feel like there was any urgency to the situation or
Mm.
panic. It was just kind of like not an immediate acceptance, but it didn't seem like, I don't even know how to fully explain it. It didn't seem like the situation was as dire as they wanted it to be, because it didn't seem like she tried enough to figure it out before just wandering away.
A little bit, yeah. I think definitely like maybe part of it was her being like freaked out by what she saw the other people happen, especially, with the
But
guy
that was
and the
after, because she
No, I
started
know.
wandering like early on by herself.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, like her just kind of like wandering off. 15 probably isn't as much of a wander as like 11 was, but I feel like she's probably aware of the Dr. Sensei just wander off. So I wonder if she just thought, "Oh, I'm going to, try and find the doctor and then we'll figure out what's going on with this lady together," was maybe her thought process. I don't know.
There weren't even any verbal cues. She wasn't even looking for the doctor, like, "Doctor, where are you?" There was just the acceptance of like, okay, this woman's following me. I'm just going to wander and keep looking at her, and then
Yeah.
not question why she's appearing in different locations in front of me, behind me, etc.
You're right. That was definitely weird that she wasn't like shouting looking for the doctor, because like realistically he couldn't have gone that far unless he like, I don't know,
No.
fell off a cliff or something. Which,
On top of this woman just teleporting to different locations. Like, it
right.
wasn't that she was just keeping a distance. She was moving to different locations.
Yeah, which I don't think Ruby like fully realized until she was on the train and she kept seeing her like outside the train window. I think is when she really started to like get super freaked out by that, because how is she keeping up with the train, like the walking thing? I mean, I know she wound
Yeah.
up on like different cliffs,
Yeah.
every so
Behind
often,
her,
but
side, front. That's, yeah.
right.
Then we have the twist. Not at the end, but at the beginning of the episode, because she's the hiker.
Yes,
I'm
I
pretty
know.
sure that was Susan Twist.
That was, yep. I know it's funny because I think a lot of people, when the episode was first, starting to get introduced and everything, I think a lot of people thought that this was going to be the episode that we found out about Susan Twist, because I think a lot of people thought that she was going to wind up being the woman following Ruby, but then like almost immediately she's like the very first character that we see that isn't the Doctor or Ruby or that woman who is Ruby, and so it's like, and it was very interesting to see Ruby be like, "Have I met you before?" And I'm like, she's
Yeah.
very smart. Like, if nothing else, this episode has proved that Ruby is very smart and pays attention and knows what genre she exists in.
Yes, to an extent, because of my complaints.
Yes, to an
But
extent.
yes, but still yes.
So you were here last week when we talked about it, because I didn't personally like catch on to the fact that Susan Twist had been in so many episodes until I saw people on Twitter pointing it out, because not only was she in like the first 3 episodes of the series, but she was also in Wild Blue Yonder. She was like the maid or whatever, Sir Isaac Newton. She was like the maid or whatever with Sir
Oh yeah,
Isaac
yeah.
Newton. And she was also in the bar that Ruby was playing at in the church on Ruby Road. So it's not just been the series proper. Like, she's been in it. So do you have any like theories on?
No, I don't know. I don't know what her significance is, but I do like the fact where you mentioned people were kind of guessing that maybe the woman is Susan Twist and we'll figure out what she is. And immediately he's like, "You thought you were going to find out. That's not her, because she's a hiker."
Yes. I know. I talked about it a little bit in last week's episode, but like it kind of felt like, at least for Boom, it was kind of like she was a red herring, because everybody was so focused on the fact that she was in the episode that completely, there was no, like, not even IMDb had the fact that the lady who's going to play the new companion next season was in the episode. Who knows if those characters will be connected or not? I kind of hope they are, because I would love to have a non-contemporary Earth companion, but like I don't know if she's like a red herring and it's just like a funny thing, or if it's a bad wolf type of situation. But there's like a lot of bad wolf type of situations this series. So IMDb usually sometimes will be like the source of spoilers that they don't want to put out, because the cast list will be put on IMDb.
Yeah.
But somehow they were able to give an incomplete cast list to IMDb, where Varda Senthu was not on that list. But Susan Twist was, so all of the people who, aren't part of the media circle, whatever, we're talking about Susan Twist rather than having any indication that there was something else coming. That was
Yeah,
an
but back on Susan Twist in this episode, like there has to be something. Like
yes.
there has to be something with her. But what did she say?
Because, we kind of hear what she's trying to say to Ruby at the end of the episode, or don't step, don't step. It's kind of like this kind of whisper in the back,
Warning, yeah.
but I would love to know, what she said, or even how much she does wind up looking like Ruby, because Carla even has a line about she looks like what she looks like. And so I'm like, is Carla realizing that this is Ruby somehow? So I don't know.
But why would that make everyone else fear her and hate her? Like,
That's
there,
why I think there's definitely more to the story. I
there
hope
has
there's
to
more to
be.
the story, because there's
That's what's,
questions that need answering, Russell.
and that's the only reason it holds me back from saying it was like an amazing, terrific episode, is because I have just so many questions about it.
Yeah.
It's
Which I think
not that I didn't like the
also,
episodes; it was
yeah,
intriguing.
coming away with questions can also be a good episode, but it needs to be followed up on, hopefully.
Yeah. Like, part of it reminds me of an old Twilight Zone episode. This episode was very Twilight Zone. Very
Oh,
hands down, this was what Twilight Zone was pretty much like.
yeah.
And there was an
I saw a lot of,
episode where this woman was walking somewhere doing something, and this crazy old lady, just I think on horseback, or maybe not on horseback, this crazy old woman starts running at her from a hill, screaming at her like something, don't do this, or blah blah, like just sounds belligerently like bonkers. And the woman has no idea. It's like a young woman has no idea what the hell she's screaming about. Doesn't Everything she's saying makes no sense. Kind of writes her off. I don't remember if she gets taken away by police, if she gets hit by a car, maybe. I don't even know what happens to that woman. I can't remember. The end of that episode, that woman in her old age ends up being somehow on that hill, seeing her younger self below the hill after everything she went through in life, and ran at her trying to give her a warning of all the things that ruined her, and it ended up being her in a loop for that episode. So
yeah.
this kind of reminds me of that, but it still doesn't explain what she was saying and why it was so devastating to everyone, and why she was exactly 73 yards away from herself at all times.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It was very Twilight Zone. I've never watched Black Mirror, but I saw a lot of people online saying that it reminded them of like a Black Mirror episode almost. I'm also now thinking about, I can't remember if it's a Twitter post or a Tumblr post, but somewhere there's a post that says something along the lines of, if my older self doesn't come back in time to stop me, how bad of a decision can it be? Kind of thing.
That Okay,
I think it's a Tumblr post. I'm pretty sure
that's
it's a
pretty
Tumblr
funny.
post.
That's
Yeah.
kind of funny. Okay.
Tumblr has its moments. Like I said, without an explanations, it's a good episode. With the explanations and with greater context that I'm hoping we're getting, it has the potential to be like one of the best episodes, I think, of the season. Okay, so we've already talked about what did happen, but like as you were watching, like what was your theory for who the woman was, or what was going to happen, or what was going on?
There was a point, in all honesty, where it was a brief thought, very brief. And I don't mean this I mean this with the utmost respect, because without the explanation, it doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
For a brief second, I thought, well, what if it's Ruby? And I was like, nah, that's stupid. And I don't mean that to be mean. I don't. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me. Like it
Yeah.
right now, with the information we have, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And that's the only gripe I have currently with it, is it doesn't line up, and I don't know, and it might line up, because RTD ties a lot of things up at the very end, and you're like, oh my god, that was brilliant, but right now I don't have those, so I'm just
Right.
yearning for more info.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The way the Next Time trailer was edited, like even that made me think, is this Ruby, because of just how it's edited with like how Ruby's turning around and like where she is. Because I think there's like a shot, I would have to look at it again, but like there's a shot where Ruby turns around and it almost looks like the woman was exactly where Ruby was standing, like the shot before that.
Mhm.
That made me think, oh, is this Ruby kind of thing? But I didn't like immediately dismiss it, because it was just like watching the Next Time trailer. I was like, oh, is that supposed to be Ruby? I didn't expect like the huge, ginormous time jump. that we had.
Oh, holy
Holy
crap!
cow!
Yeah,
I
when
was like,
I did that
Russell,
legitimately. When it said 40 years, I'm like, what the?
I was like, Russell, did you see Endgame and say, hold my beer? Like,
The big letters, boom.
yeah, I was like, oh my God. I was like, that was so heartbreaking, too. I mean,
I was also like, is this where she leaves? Like, I thought she
yeah,
was the full season. Like, does she just age out in a
I know.
weird
I was,
episode?
if it
It's not a
hadn't
weird
been,
episode. It's just ending the
if it
episode.
hadn't been for like knowing, knowing that, we have the Regency episode coming up, because that's the only like part in the trailer that I can like remember, like the trailers that we got for the full season. That's the only like part in the trailer that I could really remember that had more Ruby in it, because I don't know what shots are. Yeah, because I feel like we've seen most of everything from the trailers at this point. If it hadn't been for that, I would have been like, "Is this the end of her story? Holy cow, that's so heartbreaking," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I know that there is a shot in one of the trailers for the season where we see the older Ruby, but like she doesn't look that much older. I'm like, what is your skincare routine, Ruby? Because you do not look 40. That shot where she's got her wine
Yeah.
glass, because
Yeah.
that's one of the ones that was in the trailer, and people I think at that point were theorizing that was like an alternate universe Ruby, maybe just because she had different hair, but I don't think anybody necessarily thought that she was like a
Yeah.
40-year-old Ruby.
No, and I understand the passage of time, but as far as aging her, they didn't do very well aging her to
Hmm.
40, because when it said 40 years later, I'm like, I'm still stuck with like, wait, she should only be like 60. Like, why is she this old? Like,
Yeah.
but they do mention that, when they were having the debates, oh, it's 2031, we're going to set off the
Hmm.
bomb or launch nukes or whatever. Like, there was, and they did the montage, but they didn't give
Yeah.
dates with the montage. So
I think it is easy to miss, and it's something that I didn't like pick up on right away when I watched the episode the first time. But if you look during that montage, if you look at her little windowsill, you'll see at various points you'll see birthday cards that have like the age on the front. So
oh,
like
I
there's
didn't
a
see that.
25 birthday card, there's a 30
Okay.
birthday card, there's a 40 birthday card. So I think that was meant to be, but it wasn't like super obvious. I think they could have made it slightly more obvious, but there was those indications of passing time.
Okay, I
So yeah,
didn't
like
notice those.
I'm like, she did not look 40 at all. But
I do have to admit though, now we're bringing up the window scenes and her tipping her glass. Like, I do like, and I honestly did enjoy the evolution of the cursed woman becoming like a comfort in her life, the only
yeah.
constant. Like,
Hmm.
another year, I thought it was New Year's. Like, I didn't even think it was a birthday. Those were probably her birthdays. Now that you mention
Yes.
it and point that
Yeah.
out,
So at
I
Christmas
just
and
thought it was some
birthday.
type of, yeah, some type of holiday where she was alone and like, cheers to,
Yeah.
my little watcher.
Yeah. Like even at the end, when old Ruby's in the nursing home, she has a line that says something about everybody's abandoned me my whole life, but I haven't been alone for these last 65 years. And I was like,
I loved that line. I As weird as it was, I loved that line. I was like, oh my
yeah.
god.
I was like, man, Russell, you're breaking my heart, and we're only halfway through the season. I'm a little worried for what you've got in
Yeah.
store.
It reminded me of Amelia Pond, the girl who waited. She
Hmm.
was a little girl. She waited for the doctor. She was in that house all alone, but she never waited alone. Prisoner Zero was there with her the entire time. Just
Yeah.
didn't know about it.
I know, like I've kind of been saying, it's interesting seeing this season because it really feels like it both feels like, yes, Russell realized that they needed to inject some new ideas into the show to keep it running, to keep it fresh, and doing more of a fantasy slant definitely helps with that, I think. But also, it's very interesting because it's very fairy tale, a lot of these episodes, which is very much something that Stephen Moffat did a lot in his run, especially with Amy. So it's interesting to see kind of his take on these things. And he can do it very silly, and he can do it very serious and scary. The
Go
other
ahead.
thing that I didn't quite expect was the plot twist of her getting rid of the prime minister guy. And then to see the news unfold in the UK this week was very interesting. Like, that's weird. Russell,
I
can you see the
I
future, Russell?
I thought it was interesting because they've been making a lot of political jabs and real life
Hmm.
jabs, and some of them I feel like are aimed towards the U.S. In all
Hmm. Oh,
honesty,
for sure.
maybe it's because I'm
Yes.
in the U.S. I feel it more, or I'm attached to it more. But the prime minister, he's got like bigger, brighter, better Britain. I'm like, ooh, oh, this sounds a
Yeah.
little too familiar to the Make America Great.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, there was also the guy, this is not the series, but the hotel guy in the Arachnids in the UK. I was like, I see what you're doing,
yeah,
Chibs.
yeah,
I see what you're doing. I'm like, I do think that I don't know that TV has to parallel what's going on in real life. I think yeah, sometimes real life does provide really good inspiration for the fodder that comes through for TV and entertainment and everything. It's just sometimes I'm like, sometimes there's things that I'd rather not think about when I'm watching my escapist TV show. But also, I don't know. I don't know exactly what my point is, but I'm like, I understand why they do. Just I'm not always like wanting to think about that when I'm watching
yeah.
TV, but it's
I
also
get what you're saying.
important to
When you're living through something, you don't want to
preface.
be reminded of it.
Yes, but there was an episode of the Gallifrey series, which is basically it's been explained. I've never seen West Wing, but it's been explained to other people as like West Wing, but Doctor Who and Gallifrey. So it's a lot of like politics and junk on Gallifrey. But there is an episode in which Romana is running for president again, and her guy counterpart has some pretty doctored, pretty falsified footage of her that he plays, and there is a line where they say lock her up, and I'm like, oh god. Anyway,
Tell me I'm not the only one who thought this. So when Ruby was walking into the middle of the field and she reached into her pocket,
yeah.
please tell me I'm not the only one who thought, "Oh my shit, is she going to pull out a gun and cap this
Oh, I didn't think
this
that.
man?" I thought she was I'm like I don't know.
I
I
was
thought
like,
she
she was
was
gonna get shot, but I mean, as soon as she started like pulling out her phone and measuring, I was like, oh, I see what she's doing. That's really really smart. But I mean, because they show the guys with the guns, and like I feel like there's no better indication that this is a UK TV show than the fact that they didn't immediately shoot her,
Yeah, I guess.
because I don't think she would have made it very far in the United States if she pulled something like that at a political event in the States, unfortunately.
Sir, why did you
Yeah.
fire on her? She pulled out a phone. It was
Yeah.
73
She had her
rounds.
hand in
I
her
was fearful
pocket.
for my life.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. But yeah, I'm like, this is a UK show because I really thought she was going to get shot because
I also expected
she
a
put
little
her hand in
more.
her pocket.
Yeah, but when
Uh,
the figure, I don't even know what to call her, because if we say Ruby, we're just going to get mixed up here and there. So the
I think
woman,
the
the
woman
figure.
works.
Yeah.
I think that might even be
So,
how the actress is credited.
okay, when she was
I
next
think.
to the prime minister, I expected more. Like, I thought she was telling everyone about Ruby or something that made them scared. But with the interaction that they had in the bar, even though they were bullshitting Ruby and making up all this stuff, it still ended up being about this guy, regardless of what they were talking about. So I thought there was going to be like an interaction. The woman was going to like kill him or something, or some like really like shockingly spooky thing was going to occur, not just her talking to him and running off stage. Like
Yeah.
the build up for me, I thought was going to be greater than just that.
It almost felt like Ruby thought that too. Like, I don't know, because she even later is like, is that what you were for? And seems like not quite disappointed or annoyed that the woman is still about there, but like slightly confused as to why the woman is still there, because it feels like she thought that that was the woman's purpose, was to scare this guy off and keep
Yeah,
the UK from starting a nuclear war, apparently.
I thought that's what it was going to be too. Like that was going to be like the release of the spirit. That's what broke the
Hmm.
cycle or what broke the spell or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And I still don't know what's binding them together. I mean, it's binding her to herself, obviously, but like why or how that connection is circular,
Yeah.
I don't know still.
Yeah.
So when Kate showed up on the screen,
Mhm.
I was
Hey.
excited. I was
Yes.
like, "Oh my god, yes, we get Kate!" And
Yeah.
I knew she was gonna be in the series and
Hmm.
in the show. I saw some spoilery photos of a jacket that Ruby's wearing at that when she met with Kate. It's from Miss Fatima. I'm sure
Fatima.
Monica can put a link of it in whatever descriptions we have somewhere if anyone wants Ruby's
Wherever.
coat. But it's not Fatima, Miss Patina, the same company that actually made Clara's checkered dress for
Oh,
like under the
cool.
the same dress, or the same people made the coat. So I was excited to see Kate, and then when she said we have people here with me, I was glowing. I thought I was gonna see Osgood, who was not
Yes.
there, and then I was disappointed. And on top of that, I was excited to see Kate until I wasn't. My explanation on that is I didn't like they were there and then they just weren't, because
Yeah.
it just happened to them too, and it happened to Kate also. And this is the second time Kate's been susceptible to whatever she says that they're not going to be susceptible to. Actually, I think she meant intentionally wanted to do it the first time. She
Right.
intentionally wanted to do it the first time. My mistake, not the second time. But I didn't expect unit to just fizzle out immediately like that.
Yeah,
I
it's
thought there
almost like
would
unit,
be,
yeah,
yeah, go
like
ahead.
units still playing catch up for whatever rules the doctor changed, I mean, Kate has a line in the special about, like put the, the remnants of whatever the toy maker left behind like in salt so that, we make sure that he's taken care of, kind of thing, but it feels like they're still kind of playing catch up into, because she even has a line, where, we study and help with the extraterrestrial and more these days the supernatural. So it feels like they're still not quite there with knowing how these rules have changed or even why these rules have changed.
Yeah, and we keep breaking more and more into the supernatural with each episode ever since 14 went to the edge of the universe again. I don't know. And I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I was excited, and then it was a short thing.
Yeah.
I wanted more of them just being badass.
Yeah. I think we'll get more of that in the finale because I think Unit's definitely supposed to feature pretty heavily in the last. I don't know if it's just the last episode or the last two episodes, but I think we are supposed to see more of Unit for sure. So I'm interested to see that. But yeah, I miss Osgood. Now
I
that you
do.
mention it, I mean, she's done the audio, so it's not like she doesn't want to be a part of do the character anymore. So I don't know. It would be nice to see her. I want to see her newest. I want to see what Osgood's newest Doctor mashup
Ooh,
outfit is.
the updated outfit, that'd be interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's definitely
Oh,
got 13's coat around her there somewhere.
speaking of outfits, so you're
Yes.
talking about the next time trailer.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about. So this Doctor 15 doesn't seem to have. I mean, he has staple outfits where we can look at it and be like, "That's the Doctor," but he changes so much this season as a whole that he looked like a civilian to me in
Mm-hmm.
this one. Like, it didn't look like the Doctor. So for a moment, I'm like, "Is this actually not the Doctor?"
Hmm.
Or is because something about it felt different for the next time preview.
Yeah, I
And
don't know.
maybe it's just because he's not in staple clothing that it's as recognizable. I don't know. It's the first time I think we've had a Doctor change this much, at least in New Who for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think in the classic series as well. I mean, even there's always variations on the outfit, but it's usually pretty similar cuts and colors and combinations of things, or has like one iconic thing like the scarf, or a hat, or
Yeah,
a piece of celery on the lapel that changes colors when there's toxic gas,
or an umbrella.
or an umbrella. Yes. Yeah, I know. I feel like if the coat had been just a little bit longer, it would have been a little more doctory, but it's also kind of fun to see, it's like, hey, we got budget now. The doctor can wear whatever he wants all the time. And I think it's a nice change too because Jodie had very, very few differences in her outfits ever. Like
Y'all were
she had
so
like two
lucky.
or three different colored t-shirts. She wore a
You
vest
13
one
lovers,
time
so lucky.
or a waistcoat, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then she had like the reverse color coat and that was it. So I think it's fun that Shooty gets to play around with the different thing. But I saw other people talk about it, and I agree. He looked like Nardole, coat and pants.
Not gonna lie, I went to look for that coat, for the doctor's coat.
It's a cute coat.
The first thing I did, I forgot the name. I have it saved on my phone. I went to the web link for where I bought my Nardole coat, because I actually have a Nardole cosplay. I wore a bald cap. I looked ridiculous. It was great. But my first thought was, because of the wooden toggles, was it the same manufacturer? I went to their page, didn't see anything. But however, I did find, and I think I did find the coat. I think it is Gloverall, UK. Oh, actually, Gloverall, or is this Gloverall US? Maybe there's different web pages, but I think it's a Gloverall coat, and they just don't sell that yellow anymore. But all the other details match up on this coat.
Yeah, I mean, because they filmed this series, I feel like a while ago now. So like I think like a year ago at least. And they're currently in the middle of filming season 2, which we won't see again until next year because they've got to put the Christmas special in between. But yeah, that's fine. I know it's always like disappointing when like it's good that they film so far ahead of time because it gives all of the post-production people time to do it, but then
do
it's
their jobs correctly.
Yes, to do their jobs correctly and without being overworked, which is good for because I think I read because I think I saw something where it was supposed to air earlier in the year, but Russell was like, we need more time to finish everything correctly, which good for him, honestly.
Yeah,
but yeah, so it is it's good for them to be so ahead, but then it's also a bummer because by the time we get to actually see any of the outfits, they're long since discontinued.
Yeah, or yes and no, because the Madcap shirt from Devil's Cord, the true red one, they still sell it. They just don't sell it in that color. This coat, the Gloverall one, they still sell like 6 or 8 variations of this coat, just not the same color. It's just that that colorway is what's not being sold right now. So who knows? They might bring them back.
I remember I was able to grab, like, they restocked the tie that David Tennant wore in the 50th anniversary, and I was able to grab one of those kind of things. So who knows if they've got enough people looking to cosplay the cute little look of the Doctor being on screen for a minute, but it's a cute coat. It's a really cute coat. I've been loving seeing all of his little outfits. It's fun. So yeah, let's talk about the standout performances or moments that we had for this episode.
You go first. I want to marinate on this for a second.
Okay. Like I said earlier, Millie, very obviously, like, my understanding is that this was like one of the very first episodes shot, and Shooty still had some stuff to film for other projects that he was attached to, so that's why it's a companion heavy episode, why he's in it for like a grand total of 2 minutes. It was funny too, because as I was watching the scene, I remembered hearing people talking about, or like seeing people talk about on Twitter who went to go like watch the filming about the scene where she's on the phone yelling for her mom kind of thing. So that was kind of cool, where I had completely kind of forgotten about that because it was so long ago that it wasn't until I watched the scene where I'm like, oh yeah, I remember people talking about that when they went to go watch the filming. And like I said earlier, just like the utter heartbreak of her sitting in that hallway after her mom changed the locks on her and rejected her and said, even your real mom didn't want you. I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like it was just done so well. The way it was shot, the way it was acted, the lighting, everything. It was just phenomenal. I thought the actress that they got to play the older Ruby too was really, really good. Like we were talking about, she had some really nice little moments. I kind of liked the line too, where the nurse was saying like, okay, you can just say the word lights and it's the new thing and they'll come on. And Ruby's like, we had that when I was a kid too. Like, yeah, hey Alexa, turn on the lights. I thought that was cute. Like even though she wasn't Ruby for very long in the episode, she did a really, really good job, I felt, of playing the character and had some really nice moments. Like we were talking about, I loved seeing Kate. So great. I mean, because my thing has been like, okay, Chris Chibnall is who created the character of Kate Lethbridge Stewart, because Power of Three was the first episode that she showed up in, and that was a Chris Chibnall episode that he wrote when Stephen Moffat was still showrunner. And it feels like Russell has used Kate more than Chris Chibnall ever did. I don't know. Maybe it was like Gemma Redgrave couldn't film or something. I don't know, but and it's cool seeing like the glimpses of like we were talking about, the glimpses of how what the Doctor did at the edge of the universe is affecting even Unit, and they're still playing catch up. And Ncuti is amazing in just even the few minutes of screen time that he had. So overall, like the entire thing was so well performed. I also really, really, really loved how, because like it was shot so suspensefully, and all the like really, really close up shots of everybody's faces in the bar.
Wait, how are those
And then
close-ups again?
very big close. Like you were like looking up their noses at some points, but like it was so like I'm
very
sure
interesting tight angles.
It was all for a joke, and I'm like, but that was fun. I'm like, the suspense was built so high, and then it was just them messing with her, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, and it was a fun moment. Yeah, because I when I was rewatching the episode too, if you watch closely, the one younger guy that's in the bar, you can see a shot of him in the background, kind of like he's very out of focus, but you can kind of see him like laughing a little bit when they're all starting to, get in, freaking Ruby out.
I wonder if that was intentional or if he was just breaking character and they
I
said,
don't
leave it
know.
in. It works.
Yeah, I don't know, but when I was rewatching the episode, I'm like, oh, that's really funny. That's like a little indicator, like, oh, they're messing with her, but I really liked that scene. I thought it was hilarious.
So for me, standout performances, it all goes to the woman who played the aged Ruby, the older Ruby. Like something about her, like nothing against Miley, like just this woman specifically was just so genuine in her performance and everything she said, everything she delivered. Like it was just believable to me, and it was. I didn't want to see Ruby age that much, but I'm like, oh, this is kind of sweet. And the line that got me, I know I focused on the six, or we talked about the 63 years, but all that time I haven't been alone, even though everyone's
Mm-hmm.
abandoned me. Wording is timey-wimey. Yeah, I messed it up, but you know what I'm talking about. The
Yeah.
line when she's like, I used to be able to make it snow.
Yes.
And it sounds like to the nurse, it sounds like that's a nice crazy thing this woman said, humor her, but like she used to be able to make it snow. I'm just like, oh, why are you so
Yeah.
sweet?
Like it reminded me a lot of Last Christmas a little bit too, with the older Clara in 12. Yeah.
Clara, I would have saved you because I am.
Yeah.
That's a reference if anyone gets that. I don't know if anyone's gonna get that.
But yeah, just it was so incredibly acted and shot. Like just it was such a beautiful episode, even though it was like spooky scary. It was beautiful. With the whales actually got to be whales instead of an alien planet for once.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure was nice. This is going back to last week's episode, but I saw a tweet that was something along the lines of people being like, "Oh no, Disney money is going to change Doctor Who," and then like cut to a few months later, we're not going to go to a quarry, we're going to build our own quarry. Boom. Which probably realistically, with how long they were, because it was very much a bottle episode, that probably was cheaper than trying to go shoot at a quarry for night shoots for a month. But
yeah, it was. Other than there were like
funny.
2 locations, I think, in that, like 2 main locations.
Barely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was mostly like the crater, the area directly outside the crater, and then a little bit of the Anglican Marine camp. But you didn't see really too much of that. So
My question was, I don't think it was, but when I saw a behind the scenes a little bit, I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I forget what the name of the studio or location is. There's a specific name from it, but when I first saw it, I was like, "Is that the Mandalorian set?"
Oh, the volume, yeah.
The volume, yeah.
The volume. I don't, as far as I'm aware, it's not the volume, but it is very similar technology to it.
Yeah, it looked very much like it, yeah.
When you look at like the pulled back pictures of the behind the scenes, it's definitely a smaller screen than the volume.
Okay.
At least from what I can tell of seeing.
It was working on the same principles though, because it had like the sensors,
yes.
so when you move the camera, the real engine would move the background with it, so forth, lighting,
exactly.
etc.
Yeah, for sure. So there was one other little tiny thing that I noticed when I was watching it is that there is a QR code on the table when Kate and Ruby are talking. At the moment, I mean, I don't know if maybe it'll lead to something different later. I couldn't get it to work, but other people on Twitter could. It leads to Stephen Fielding's website, and he does a lot of, in case anybody was wondering, he does a lot of like graphic design work for the show, which I thought was kind of cool. I was kind of hoping it was going to be something. I mean, that's still cute, but I was hoping it was going to be something a little more interesting,
How dare
especially
you?
because,
Just kidding.
yeah,
Just,
because one thing that apparently, because there's been like rumors of them doing spin-offs and something, and I guess one of the rumored spin-off names was named drop in this episode. So I thought, like, oh, I wonder if that's gonna, you know, because I was seeing people talking about that because it gets name dropped in the scene in the bar. I can't remember what it is now because I haven't been paying close attention to the rumors of spin-offs or whatever.
okay.
Something like
Oh,
Between the Land and the Sea, I think, is like a rumored title of a spinoff.
that's a weird
But
name.
they haven't filmed anything, so. But I thought that maybe it's going to lead to something about that, but it's the guy's website, which I think is cute. I'm like, he's the one who's designing all of these fun little graphic things because somebody has to design the QR code on the table for the virtual menu, which
I
is
mean, they've
incredibly
been paying
common.
homage
Somebody's got to
to a
design the
number of
billboard
people.
in Devil's Court.
Yeah, they've been paying homage to a number of people behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
this season because the QR code leading to his website. We had Murray Gold, like
Yeah.
at the piano. Forgive me for forgetting her name, but the woman who's responsible for the Fourth Doctor's scarf
Yes.
in
Mm-hmm.
the episode too. Like we have a
Yes.
number of behind the scenes people who are
Yeah. Well, this
just
she was also like the costume designer. I can't remember her name right now either, but not just the scarf, but a lot of the costume design for that era. Yeah. June
yeah.
Hudson. There we go. Yeah. It's been fun to see those little Easter eggs and things, which I didn't realize that was June Hudson when I watched the episode the first time, but I didn't notice Murray Gold when I was watching the episode, but I saw his name in the credits and it was like Murray Gold as himself. And I was like, huh? And so I had to rewind the episode and be like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And
So
there's a Twitter account, X account, whatever you want to call it, that I don't know if you've ever seen it, but basically the running joke is that they have yet to release the soundtrack for series 10 of Doctor Who. And so there's this Twitter account. And I also got a ribbon at Gallifrey 1 this year, which is excellent. That basically is like all these jokes about stuff that happens before the season 10 soundtrack for Doctor Who gets released. And I gotta find the tweet because it was really funny.
so there is a theory on this season that with the toy maker and music and all the fourth wall breaking, I don't remember if you mentioned it to me, someone else mentioned it to me, if I read it somewhere. I don't remember where this theory came from. It is not my own. But there's a theory that the Doctor is caught in a game in like some television show where he
Oh.
knows but doesn't know at the same time, which links into Murray Gold playing himself. All these people from the show being, or from shows or production being in there, reoccurring background cat members being recast as background members. What else was it? You pointed out that he could hear the music and he was like, I forgot the
Mm-hmm.
word it was. He was like, that
The
wasn't
non-diegetic.
soundtrack. The not
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't non-diegetic. Like that was actual, like something actually happening.
Yeah. No, I did
So there
see a
are
joke
a
where
number of
somebody.
things that point towards this possibly being not reality or the
Mm-hmm.
reality we know in Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, like he's still having to play some sort of game with the toy maker. That's an interesting theory for sure. Yeah, I did enjoy. I forget again where I saw this. It was either Twitter or Tumblr or something, where there was a post. It's like, well, if the Doctor can hear the music all the time, no wonder 11 had such occasional swagger because he could hear "I Am the Doctor" playing all the time.
Did you see that
And
one
so,
TikTok where the
well,
dude's
give
like,
me one.
go, 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 go.
So the tweet that I found the tweet that I was talking about earlier, and the tweet is not from Doctor Who season 10 soundtrack released after, but they retweeted another account that's crazy ass moments in Doctor Who history, and the tweet reads, Murray Gold fictionalizes himself to avoid releasing the series 10 soundtrack. 2024. And it's just then a screenshot of him in the episode. I'm like, that's really funny. Anyway, sorry, the TikTok.
So the TikTok was this guy, they do the "What are you listening to right now?" And the guy's like,
Yes.
"Oh, I am the Doctor by Murray Gold." And then
Mm-hmm.
you just hear dun 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 dun, dun as a dude just like sprints and like takes off. He's like, "Oh!"
And I've said it before, I didn't dislike the music in 13's run. The guy who did it did a great job, but also there's just something about Murray Gold and Doctor Who music that is just perfect. And I love it.
I loved 13's theme. I did like
Mm-hmm.
13's theme. I think the first season he was still adapting, but he started to reach his stride in like the second
Oh, for
and
sure.
third season of that
Yes.
run. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I
but
really enjoyed the music, but yeah, that Murray Gold, I think there's some things that are a tough act to follow. Like, I also don't envy anybody who has to follow John Williams when doing the Star Wars score. But, there's people
that's
who do
fair.
it very, very well. So, like, but yeah, one of the things I keep thinking about is I'm like, I need Doctor Who to get big enough so that we can have a Disney night, a Disneyland night for Doctor Who, and have Murray Gold music in Space Mountain, like they do the Hyperspace Mountain when it's Star Wars night. So, anyway,
Just have the
so
TARDIS flying around.
yes, yes,
Oh, instead of like going up into like a wormhole or whatever, you're going through the time
mm-hmm,
vortex.
mm-hmm. That lift hill makes me dizzy, but I would happily be like, it's the time vortex. It really does. Like, I can't. Like, I kind of have to like look down when that effect is working on Space Mountain, because it's like the wormhole goes one way and then there's like the things that are turning the other way, so it's very disorienting and I'm like, I can't look at it. I don't know if that's because I'm gonna be 30 this year, but I'm like, I can't look at that anymore or else it's gonna be bad. Anyway, we are completely off topic. I don't know, whatever. So we are about halfway through the series and people have had all sorts of things to say online about this series. One thing that I have been thinking about, and maybe this will be another thing to revisit once we have the full series, but do you, and this isn't directly related to this episode, but do you think that the show might have been better served by slightly reworking the order of these first few episodes?
It depends, because the Church on Ruby Road, in my opinion, was a special, and
Mm-hmm.
then they said it was episode 1.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because we had seen Church on Ruby Road and it was a special at the time, episode 1 was Space Babies, and I didn't think
Mm-hmm.
that was a strong episode to start the season with. But Space Babies being episode 2 is better. However, it might have been a little better like mid-season. That's the only one I don't know what order, if I would move everything up and where I would squeeze it in. But and I'm not bashing Space Babies. It's just a campier episode that I expect to be midway through a season to buffer all the intense and basic, you know, all this stuff's happening. So like when you're watching the news and you're devastated, like this world is screwed, and then they're like, now here's a break to show some puppies for a minute,
Yeah.
yay, and then to the weather. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that was more of a mid season break to get you reset for the rest
Yeah.
of the devastation that's going to happen.
Yeah. Kind of like dropping Unicorn and the Wasp in the towards the end of season 4. Yeah, I definitely agree because a lot of like, I don't even want to call it criticism because at this point it's just straight up people being mean and obnoxious, but like I think there would have been less of that if it had been Space Babies, Boom, Devil's Cord, and then 73 Yards, so that you get like a silly, a serious, a silly, and a serious.
Okay.
Like, very honestly, like I really feel like it was that Boom was originally episode 2, especially with the reference to it being Ruby's first alien world or whatever. I feel like Devil's Cord was probably made into episode 2 because as everybody knows, Space Babies and Devil's Cord, the first 2 episodes came out on the same day, and I feel like Devil's Cord might have been moved to episode 2 or decided to be season 2, episode 2, because in the UK the episodes aired on TV right before the Eurovision finale, which is a big song. I don't fully understand it. I just see a lot of posts on Tumblr and it's very weird. But my understanding is that it is like a songwriting contest for different countries in and around Europe. There's some that aren't quite Europe, but are. I don't know how it
Yeah,
works. There's a lot of real world things with Eurovision this year. But my understanding is because it's a big song contest and it's about music and that they might have been like, oh, let's put Devil's Chord right before it because it's about music and singing and it's very camp kind of thing. Like, for instance, like the apparently the Eurovision thing that most people are going to know is that ABBA was originally a Eurovision thing. So, you know,
I didn't know that actually.
yeah, I can't
It
remember
sounds it
which
sounds a
song of them it
little
is, but
familiar, but
yeah,
ABBA's been around since I can remember.
yes, yeah. One of their songs was originally a Eurovision contest thing, but yeah, I think that that's slightly why they had that be episode 2. But I do think it would have worked better to have Space Baby because Space Babies is a very, I think it was by design a bit lighter just because it was more of an introduction to the Doctor because you don't really meet a whole lot of like you there's that scene with the policeman where the Doctor kind of explains who he is a little bit in Church on Ruby Road, but like he's not the main character of Church on Ruby Road is Ruby. The Doctor realistically doesn't he's in it obviously, and I mean it's been a bit since I've watched the episode, but it it's very much about Ruby and what her story is, so you get more of the Doctor's backstory kind of explained in Space Babies. But I definitely think Boom would have worked as a second episode a little bit better just to show that it's not all going to be silly because apparently a lot of people saw the first 2 episodes and they're like no, which I think is too bad because they're missing some really great TV, especially with
Yeah,
3
but
yards. But I think there's also
also,
always going to be people who complain, so
yeah, there are always going to be people who complain, and then a number of the people who complain. Some of the people were complaining on Devil's Chord just because they were just mad that the Beatles didn't look like the Beatles, and
yeah.
they were feeling self-entitled, like,
Or
"Oh,
hey,
why didn't they just call me? I look like this person." Blah blah blah. Like from like people like in posts on Facebook and different forums, like,
yeah,
I look more like this person. Why didn't they just call me? Blah, blah. Like, no, like nobody
you put a bowl wig
cares
on most
about.
any British person and they're going to look like a beetle. Like,
Yeah.
chill.
I, and plus, you have to sound like them too. My
Mhm.
opinion is, and I'm no expert on how they sound, but they sounded pretty good to me when they're
Cool.
talking and singing or whatever,
Yeah.
even
I
though
mean,
they're singing about a dog.
yes.
But so the main complaints I saw were that they didn't look like the Beatles, and also just people not liking things because they don't like anything that's not their lifestyle.
Hmm.
And that's
Yes.
the best way I can explain it right now. And I think you
The
know what I
most
mean.
diplomatic way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, there, I to not quite what you're saying, but also like I feel bad for anybody who can't enjoy at least a musical number. Like I really do. Like I feel bad for anybody who can't enjoy silly things like a musical episode in Doctor Who or She-Hulk or a musical number in Captain Marvel. Like I feel bad for people who can't. I'm like Doctor Who and Marvel and some of these other things like they're by definition, by the genre that they exist in, by the way that these stories are told, you can have silly and it's great. And I love that. But like genuinely, I feel bad for people who see a musical number and they're like, "This is awful. I can't. Nope. Bye." And I'm like, "Have some joy in your life, please,"
For
because it
me, well,
was
you already know how I felt
fun.
about
It
that.
was
Like
fun. Yeah.
the musical number went on too long for me.
Yeah.
You loved it. I'm not bashing that, but for me,
Yes.
I was like, oh, okay, there's a musical
Yeah.
number. Oh, it's still going. Oh, how long is this? Oh, they're really committing to this. Okay. What's going to happen after this? Oh, that's the end of the episode? Okay, that was an interesting choice. But that's me.
Yeah.
Because I always, I just like reason or explanation, but I think that also feeds into the theory that people were having that's this is the Doctor stuck in another type of game because that would not normally happen. And, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. One
I didn't have a
other
problem with it. It's just, it was too
No,
long for
which
me.
I can understand. I get that not everybody likes musicals. Like I will always tell people, I'm like, I really want to go see Spamalot at some point, but I get my love of musicals from my mom, and I get my love of stupid movies from my dad. Neither one of them are going to go see Spamalot because it's a Monty Python musical. I will be on my own if that ever comes on board here. Like it's not everybody's cup of tea, but like there were some people online acting like it was like the end of the world. Like how dare Doctor Who have a musical number? Like this is the worst. And like the people who are like, how can anybody ever like musicals? I'm like, I don't know. Broadway exists. I'm like, just because you don't like something doesn't mean that there isn't an audience for it. I
Yeah,
could go on.
it's almost like someone saying, like, it's almost like someone saying, who would do a 3 hour concert? Like, nobody wants to see that. I'm sorry.
I don't know the full story behind it, but I have seen a few TikToks on that. Yeah. It's like it genuinely seems like online there are people who just cannot understand that their like or dislike of something does not automatically make something good or bad because everything has an audience, everything has somebody who's going to love it. I'm
Yeah,
like, if you didn't like She-Hulk, you didn't like She-Hulk, but it's the people who go on and on and on and on about why they didn't like She-Hulk that I'm like, listen, it's not going to be for everybody. I understand that, but to say something is objectively awful just because you didn't like it or you weren't the intended audience or something is just it's just
yeah, and I stand by my opinion on Doctor Who that not every series or every season of Doctor Who is for everyone, but
yeah,
there is a series or season of Doctor Who for everyone.
exactly.
And I stand by that. This just, if someone just, after everything wraps up, give it a chance for everything to wrap up. If it just wasn't your thing at the end of the season, then it wasn't your thing. But you know, and you could have legitimate reasons why you didn't like it,
Yeah,
but don't hate people who enjoy it. Just
yeah,
realize that this wasn't for you. The
yeah.
next one
The
might be, or maybe an older one just is your
yeah,
thing and you never moved on. I don't know. Like people who never moved on from Rose and hated Martha. I don't.
yeah,
Martha
yeah.
deserved better.
Yeah, everything
Love
has an
Martha.
audience. Yes, oh, for sure. Oh my goodness, please. Yes. I hope she's I it would be I think it would be good of Russell to bring her back somehow. But she is also currently I mean, season 2 is filming right now, but she's also currently in the Romeo and Juliet production with Tom Holland. So,
You know what have been, oh crap, you know what have been amazing and devastating at the same time? I would have been happy as hell and pissed as hell immediately is if when Kate said we have others, we have experts. Martha came in and then Martha was leading the thing, turned around and then went away. I've been like, what the fudge cracker? If they brought Martha in, even just for that, I would have been like, oh
yeah.
crap, this is serious.
Yeah, I know.
Kate's serious. Kate is
Yes.
definitely serious, but bring Martha in with Kate, and then you've just amplified that point by 10,000.
Yeah, especially cuz, at this point Martha's kind of freelance. So, I mean, who knows what story she's been up to in the meantime, but
They could have contracted
yeah,
her, tapped her in, or whatever. Like this
yeah,
companion needs help, and she's like,
exactly.
"I
Yeah,
help,
because
I help,
Martha,
I help companions.
yeah,
I'm
it
there
would
for the
actually
people who are with the doctor."
it would have been a really interesting parallel too, because I mean, at that point, it had been a year since the Doctor left Ruby, and Martha spent a year walking the Earth, with the Doctor being an old man on the spaceship, or not the spaceship, the airship, So it would have been a really cool parallel, yeah. So I mean, I would love to see Martha back. I would love to see her get her dues. So who knows? But yeah, at present, I don't think that'll be happening until at least series 3 because then she's in Romeo and Juliet with Tom Holland. She's playing the nurse. So I really hope that production gets a pro shot because I would love to see it, but it sold out immediately. So, and I can't afford to go to London anyway. So, but yeah, that would have been really cool. It would, like I keep saying, really good episode, but it can be even greater if we get some explanations. So,
I need info. That is,
yeah.
I just need
Like I
info.
don't think I'm as bothered about it as you are. For sure. Like I definitely have questions, but you know, because hopefully we will get some answers. Because sometimes I'll be like, oh, there will be answer, and then there isn't. But hopefully we'll get something. But again, there's an entire episode called The Legend of Ruby Sunday, so I would imagine something will come up.
Yeah, there has to be something. Something bigger is definitely going on. Is definitely has to do with David Tennant screwing everything up for everyone else yet again. I mean, that's why 11 had cracks in the universe, because Tennant landed his TARDIS in another universe, which brought the cracks and the silence and everything that 11 had to deal with. Not a lot of people talk about that, though. So not a lot of people talk about that very much, though. That the cracks in the universe were because David Tennant landed in another universe. That's why the bit of the TARDIS was in there, I think. Wasn't it?
It was because the TARDIS, because I think it was in some version of the timeline, the people associated with the silence were able to blow up the TARDIS. And then 11's joke is like, oh, I thought that I left the bath running. I think that's what the explanation. It's been a hot minute since I've rewatched 11's episodes, but I think that's what the explanation was that they, in some version of everything, the silence succeeded in killing the Doctor, and they blew up his TARDIS. And
I always attributed the cracks in the universe starting because the Doctor breached the borders between the universes when going into Pete's world.
Yeah.
And now he's brought everything into this universe that 15 has to clean up.
Gotcha. Okay. Maybe. I don't know.
If you guys have any of your own thoughts, or if there are any points that you guys would like us to touch on more, just wherever we're posting this, because it goes on several platforms, just go ahead and comment, interact with us. We do like the interaction. It does also help our posts, and the engagement does wonders just across any platform. So just like, share, or just comment if you want to. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube,
Shorts, Instagram Reels.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's other
visit
places.
templegeek.com for the website if you want to read the article and have links to anything that we mentioned in here, like the Miss Patina jacket that I'm assuming we're going to link because I mentioned it. So now Monica has to put the link in the thing. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Join us on all of our platforms. We enjoy your guys' company. I know that we cannot see you, but just like the woman in this episode, I know you're there.
Okay. That's one way to end that.
Yeah, so you can visit templeofgeek.com for Doctor Who cosplay guides, episode reviews, news, and more. My name is Nate, aka Doc in the Box.
And Elizabeth, aka Lady of Time Cosplay.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yep. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.